welcome to the second day of code talks. I hope you enjoyed yesterday and are excited for the talk today. Thank you for joining this session. I'm really excited to see you all. And I want to start this talk by asking you to imagine that you worked really, really hard on a feature. You are ready to press the green button, merge it into the main branch. You're relaxed. You want to continue working on other feature just to get the following message. A bit disappointing, right? So today I'm going to cover a few of the best code review practices I have learned in order to try to reduce the amount of comments like this on your PR. So we all experience this, whether we gave this kind of not exactly the same words, but we all experience something like this, whether we gave this as a comment or receive it as a comment. So hopefully we can all relate, but we're gonna make it better. We're gonna try to reduce it. So I've asked ChatGPT to say a few words about me, so to save me the trouble of writing my own. So I'm a senior software engineer working at AT&T R&D Center. I have a master degree in computer science. I love React. I mostly do front end. I can do also full stack, but I'm more oriented to the front end. I volunteer at different initiatives to promote women in R&D, and I enjoy study psychology as well. And I love spending time reviewing what? No. I definitely don't love spending time reviewing PR. So as you see, we need to review the whatever ChatGPT wrote. If I will say something I don't think it's correct, he probably will apologize, right? He's good at apologizing. And today we're going to talk about code review and best practices, because applying good practices of code review will improve productivity, improve the delivery time, improve the quality of the code. So when we talk about code review, we have several personas involved. So up until a few years ago, we had the developer, the reviewer. They had an interaction in between, right? The developer submitted a PR and then waited for the response, whether it's approved, whether there are other comments or things to change and fix. And in the recent years, we have a new persona, a new player in the game that changed a bit the rules, the AI. Now, the AI can meddle in the beginning or assist us in between our task, and I will cover it later through this talk. So let's say we have this developer. Now she wants her PR to be merged and fixed and delivered on time. She wants to keep the deadline, promote her own feature, and in order to do that, in order to stay and work on our feature and keep the deadlines, what we need to do is to make our PR appealing for the reviewer. So how do we do that? We can all agree that we need to avoid long PRs. I'm not sure what about you, but receiving, and I sometimes do receive those kind of PR, makes me look a bit like this, right? It's very frustrating. And not to mention that going over so many files, will cause us a bit of fatigue, right? We can we stay focused on the beginning, catch some errors, catch some things that needs handling, like error handling, or catching things like you didn't handle undefined or something like that. But as long as we continue to review the code, we might get tired and we might miss crucial things in the review. In another thing long PR causes is this long communication, this long ping pong of comments, right? Because fix that, and you reply and they reply, and it's kind of feels like a never ending, like your infinite loop of comments. So keep the ping pong for the coffee break and enjoy the real ping pong and not ping pong of comments. Additional thing, long PR also increases the possibility for bugs, right? Because we are touching a lot of files, a lot of area in the code. So it's also a reason to try to avoid long PRs. In addition, Usually we work at a team unless we are doing some POC or working on our own startup. So we have other colleagues working on the repository, working on the same code, right? So if they're working on the same area, what will happen is they will commit the code, push it, and because our PR is very, very long and postponed for later, because nobody really wants to check 100 files, then what can happen is if our colleague do like a small PR and it gets merged before ours, then we will have merge conflict to solve, and we will be frustrated as well, not just the reviewer. And of course, we will need to test everything again to make sure there is no regression and stuff like that. So what do? You can guess it. We break the PR into small pieces. Try to make it more manageable, more appealing for the reviewer. We can all agree that receiving this PR is better, right? And another thing we can do to make the PR more appealing is to introduce and give context to the PR. So imagine you receive a PR and you see like those changes and you're not familiar with the feature. Maybe you were not focused on the daily or something when they covered the feature. So give your colleague context. Tell them what was the change, why it was needed, add a link to the Jira ticket, or if you're working with another ticketing system. And we can really automate have this structure of what we accept to give as context. So you can provide what is called a pull request template, just add it to your repository. And you can define, it looks like that. You don't have to have the same template, but you can take a look. This is an example. You can kind of take a place and put a place for the link, add the description. You can also specify whether you tested a feature or not. And this is also good for us as coders because it will remind us of the standard that we expect from us, right? If I worked on a feature, I created a component and I forgot to add some test coverage to it. I forgot to add unit test. So it is a bit problematic, right? So when I do a PR and I see this and I say, oh, I forgot to add unit tests. So I will go ahead and add some test and test it better. So it's also good for us in keeping the standards and the quality of the code. So it will look like this. Automatically, once you have this template on your repository, then you will, when you create the pull request, you will see something like this. You will need to change all the things, add a description, for example, and then your colleague will get something like that summarizes everything. Now, nowadays, if you're using Copilot, it will automatically give some sort of context. It will specify what was the change, and it will specify which files were changed. But you also need to review it because sometimes Copilot doesn't emphasize what was the main change, what was the main feature in this branch. For example, you might have changed a YAML file or something like that, and it's not really the feature itself, but it will emphasize it. So you need to differentiate between the main changes and the rest. So review the overview. And I want to ask you a very important question. Raise your hand if you prefer single quotes. Okay, double quotes? Huh, okay. JavaScript developer? I see. Java? Okay, that's why the double quote, I think. I'm not sure. It's a theory that I have. So each of us has standard when it comes to single quote, double quotes, whether to use 2-space, 4-space. And we can define it in our WebStorm or IntelliJ. We can define it in VS Code. But what happens when we and our colleague have different preferences? So we will get this in the PR, right? So it's a lot of noise, which is unnecessary because it's not really a change. Now, the white space, we can tell GitHub, please ignore the white space, right? But this is a bit more tricky, and we want to reduce the noise. So what do? As a team, we set up the standards. We might disagree, we can take a vote, whatever, or be a bit, it slipped away. No, sorry. Okay, now it's better. So we can decide as a team what we want to do, what are the standards. We can set whether we want two space, single quotes. I will change it for next time to double quote as the default. And we can use Prettier if you're using front end, and just have it as a pre-commit hook. That way, before we even commit the code, we can run. What? Something wrong with the animation. But we can run format, and it will fix it automatically and stuff like that. So it will reduce the unnecessary noise of the PR. In addition, we can add, for example, Sonar. Do you know Sonar? You're using it? Great. So it will automatically catch unused import. It will detect, for example, vulnerability and stuff like that. So it's really good to introduce it. So, no, don't run automatically. Sorry. So remember, keep it simple, keep it appealing. Now, in the recent years, we have a new player. We have the AI. Now, we can use AI in different phases of the code review. For example, we can tell the AI to do initial code review even before we commit and push the code. We can set rules that tell the PR. For example, we can add an MD file called Copilot review instruction. We can give it as a context and define some rules that we want to follow. So if we give it, we can also kind of personalize it and give ask him, for example, to give a motivation quote. We worked hard on a feature, we want to push it, and we want to say, to kind of give ourselves an encouragement from doing stuff. So we can have an extra instruction. And what you can see here, that it really follows those instructions and even end things with a quote. What happened? Sorry. Okay. And you can even further give it additional instruction and specify, for example, give me quotes of Britney Spears, and he said, oops, I did it again. And in addition, you can also have it automatically, it also automatically reviews the code on GitHub once you push the code. So it finds stuff like you need to fix the functionality, you didn't handle undefined, you forgot to catch the console log and delete it. So it's really good to use and utilize the Copilot in order to initial review the code and review our code later, even before it reaches our colleague, because it saves them time. And another thing it is good to use Copilot for is that the Copilot can feel okay to be a bit nitpicking, right? It can nitpick and be like annoying and said, you need to change this, you need to change that, and it really is good for our team. Why is that? Because if my colleague is a bit nitpick and always give me some annoying, it's not necessary things to fix, right? So how will I feel about my colleagues now? Like, I don't want to give this to assign it to my colleague. He's always nitpicking. I hate this. I don't love it, right? So we might find ourselves in a situation like this. So if the Copilot is the nitpicking person, it's much more easier, right? It kind of saves the relationship, right? It keeps the work environment really good. And of course, we need to review the review. We don't have to take everything the Copilot suggests. We can take what we want and ignore the rest. So it's another thing we can do. Another thing that we can use Copilot, as many of us do nowadays, is to give it to task itself. Say, you can generate the code for us. I trust you, or not. And so if you want to specify how we expect the copilot, the agent, to write the code, we can add another file to our repository called like we give it a copilot instruction. We put it in our GitHub directory, and it will automatically take it, recognize it, and take it as a context whenever we give it a task, whenever we give it something to do. So this is just an example, and we can see here that you specify general things, general instruction, what is the styling convention, what do you expect, how to break things into meaningful chunks, etc. And we can also need, whenever we use Copilot, to give context, to give, to define which file do you need in order to implement the feature. So it's really important, and we need to give it context, and we need to give the exact amount of context. If we give too much, it might hallucinate, right? If we give too little, it might be accurate, not be accurate. So we want to give the exact amount of information it needs. Just like writing a blog post, you want to give your readers all the necessary information they need to understand the blog post. So now when you use Copilot, give it all the necessary context it needs in order to write the code as accurate as possible, etc. And again, you know what this means? Break it into smaller tasks. Don't give it implement the entire feature, just like you do yourself. Break it into small things. Break it into little pieces, and remember, review the generated code. Sometimes it makes mistake. And this is, for example, let's take a look at an example. We have a user story, received it from our product, and we want to show the talks of code.talks in a tree view. And we want to display it based on the name of the stage. For example, stage 2 will have this talk and the rest of the talk, and stage 3 will have those amazing talks. And we also are required to add a filter functionality to be able to filter by the day of the conference, etc. So what do? We break it into smaller tasks. So first of all, we tell him, okay, so create the tree. So we start with creating, and he's really nice. He's implemented it. I'm using React, by the way, sorry, if you're a Java developer, but you can understand that it's really created this nice component that I gave it. And then the next step is to ask, okay, so now please add the option to filter the tree by the stage, by the day of the conference, etc. Okay, so he is really nice colleague, it's really nice assistant, and he implements the code that I asked him to do. Are you seeing this code? Are you see it from the back? Do you see it? Okay, good. But now we need to review the code. And if we take a closer look, we will see that it added a filter. You can see here that we have two select, meaning two drop-downs, but I haven't specified, right? I didn't tell him to create two different filters. I wanted just a single filter, not two of those. So you can see that we really need to check it. We need to iterate until we are more accurate. Maybe I should have specified I want a single, be more precise, more exact. And it's a never-ending loop. I can also ask it to review the code he wrote, and then you see he wants to add memoization and error handling and accessibility. But it's weird that he did it at the first place, right? So it's kind of iterative kind of process. Okay, and remember, with great power comes great responsibility. We are the cinema, so it's a famous quote, because the AI can write the code, the AI agent can write our code, but we are the owner of the feature. We are still responsible for the quality of the code it generates. So we need to check ourselves, check the AI, and take ownership for the feature, even if AI wrote it. Now, we are moving on to the second persona, the reviewer. Now, the reviewer wants to be efficient and wants to be a good team player, right? Because as colleague, we have our own feature to implement, right? We have our own deadlines, but we also have the responsibility to work as a team and to help our team members review their code and push it to the main branch, because we have a shared goal of working on and creating great feature, and we are working as a team together. We have shared goal. So in the recent years, everyone talking about work-life balance, right? So I'm introducing a new concept called code review balance, right? Because we need to balance between our own feature and being a good team player and reviewing our colleagues' pull requests. So we need to schedule it wisely. Did you know, like I mentioned, that I study psychology, and did you know that studies in psychology showed that if you have a context switch, it can take you up to 25 minutes to regain focus. So just think about it. If we switch between your feature and code review and your feature and code review, how much time do you waste at context switch? So now that we are breaking our PRs into smaller PRs, right? If we have enough an hour in between meetings, that probably could have been also an email, right? So we can schedule the code review in those 30 minutes. It can fit right there, right? So, by the way, you can also talk to your team leader and set a standard that you also add a task to the board for code review fixes. That way, it will be taken into account of the team's capacity and the remaining times that you have to work on task. So remember, schedule wisely. Additional thing you need is to consider the availability. Sometimes we don't understand the code. We have some question why somebody implemented things like that or like that. So what do we need to do? We need to consider the availability of our colleagues and reach out to them if we have questions whenever they are kind of on call, whenever they are working. If we are waiting, if I'm doing a code review at 10 p.m., hopefully my colleague have better life than I do, and they are watching TV, watching Netflix or whatever, so they won't be available. So if I have a question, I want to make sure that they are available for questioning. And this is a checklist of the things you need to check as the reviewer. We need to check for functionality, architecture, if the code will be scalable, if we open it to more users, for example. We want to make sure that the code is clean, that it's not too complex, that the styling is consistent with the entire styling, that we don't have any performance issue, that we cache things, and that we handle undefined and errors, and that we log things, and that we have also test coverage. So those are the things as a reviewer we need to take into account when we check someone's code. And a tip, if you get a long PR and you want to check it, you can also take the branch, check it out, and run it locally. It will really help you to understand the flow and to see if somebody made a mistake, if it missed something. Just play around with it like you're doing a manual QA and stuff like that. So it's easier to run things locally and catch mistakes. And you can also see PR if you switch your mind and view PR as a mentoring opportunity, as a growth opportunity, and as a way to stay up to date with a feature. For example, you're sitting here, right? And you probably all merged recently code to the main branch, right? And you have colleagues that are not here, unfortunately for them, right? So you know that you can sit here and listen to this talk because you know that your colleagues are familiar with your code, with a feature, because they review the code, so they know the feature. And if something happens and you have like a bug in production, not you, somebody, right? You know that they got your back, that they understand the feature, they're familiar with it, and they can have your back. So consider looking at the PR in this kind of perspective, and it will make it more fun for you to be a reviewer. So let's talk about mentorship opportunities. So when you give comments on PR, you can consider clean code, for example, if you have comments about clean code, you can share it with your colleague. Also share best practices or recommended design patterns or new feature. For example, if ECMAScript introduced new feature to the language, then if your colleague didn't use it and he could have used it, you can write a comment, did you know that ECMAScript introduced this and this, the knowledge or whatever, and you can use it. So it's really a mentoring opportunity. You can help your team member become a better programmer. In addition, you can see it as an opportunity for yourself for professional growth. Because when we review others people's code, right? We learn from their approaches. We learn from the way that they do code. We learn from the styles. We see different ways to approach a situation, to approach things. And then we can see different design patterns, new feature. We can take it and then use it for a next feature. And remember, one of the most important things when doing the PR interaction is to be kind. So we are still working with humans. Not sure what will happen in the next years, but for now, we need to be kind to each other. We are working together. We need to keep the environment, the working environment nice. And instead of leaving those comments, we can also leave comments when we should, to say, great idea, or appreciate the way you solve it. It's great idea. And we can say something like this, is great, but you forgot a little something. So be nice and mention it and say a good word when it deserved. And you also need to know how, as a code owner, you also need to know how to take comments. Because usually we have text, we don't hear the intonation of the one who wrote, right? So as human, it's sometimes hard to understand what did he mean by that. It was sarcastic, it wasn't sarcastic, it was nice, it wasn't nice. Sometimes you use emoji to further, like in WhatsApp, to further emphasize the meaning of the message you want to convey. So keep in mind, be nice, keep the work environments fun and easy. And remember, again, with great power, this time of the reviewer, comes great responsibility or great repository, right? And this, let's see an example. Again, JavaScript and TypeScript actually, but I have this switch case. I implemented a feature and I want to filter the code.talks talk based on several cases. For example, if action is needed, or if the talk is full, if there are no places to attend, if we are fully booked, or if we have multiple speakers for the talk. And again, I can add more filter as I want. So let's say I'm writing this code and I submitted it as a PR. Can you think of a better way to kind of code it? Think about it. Do you know any other patterns that you can use in order to avoid the switch case? Okay, so I wrote this and I got this. So instead of using switch case, there is a design pattern called strategy. Basically, it's a map between the filter enum and the functionality. So the code is cleaner, it's more maintainable, and we can really, so you see how by creating a PR, I learned something, I got a comment from the reviewer who suggested a new strategy. So now I can take it and take this knowledge and apply it to another time when I have this switch case scenario and replace it to use this pattern. And you can also see it in a different kind of situation. Let's say, see, I was nice, great idea, thanks. And if you get, for example, this as a reviewer, the opposite side, when you review a code and you see somebody implemented filter in this way, you can say, wow, thanks, what a great implementation. I will use it for next time. So you can see how you can really leverage PR for mentoring and for professional growth. And now that we covered the different persona, we as a team need to set the rules and manage the expectation. How should a code process be managed? For example, we can define a file with code owners in our repository. That way, whenever we create a PR, automatically our team members will receive this email. Probably they will set a rules to take it to a different folder, but they will receive an email that somebody created a PR and they need to check it. We can specify in GitHub how many reviewer needs to review our code. And for really critical feature, it's really important to have a second opinion. For example, if you're working on setting infrastructure, maybe you should reach out to the architect and ask her if she has any point of view that we might have missed, if she can review it, if she has any input, right? We don't want to miss critical things. And you can also set the expectation how we assign PR. Do I assign it to a specific person, or do I use kind of a Kanban method? Like I have this pool of PR, and whenever somebody from the team is available, he or she can grab the ticket and handle the PR and review it. And communicate in Teams or in Slack that you've created a PR, because sometimes, as we all do, we ignore the emails that somebody created a PR. So communicate it also in the team channel. And if somebody doesn't respond, or for example, you can set a rule that you put an icon of eyes for saying, I'm checking it, or icon of a pencil saying, I left some comments, or just a check, like, great, approved. So if you don't see that somebody responded or left a comments, make sure to kind of give a reminder, not straight away, give them a bit like 2 hours or so. I know you're all wanting to merge it to main already, but sometimes your colleagues are busy on their own features, so give it time. And if you see that the time passes, nobody do something, then ping them, maybe in private or not. And another thing from psychology is be aware of the bystander effect. Basically, they studied the bystander effect, and they found that whenever there is a large amount of people present, it is less likely for people to offer help. Now, the original study was conducted based on a bit sad story. I won't cover it now. But if you want, you can check the bystander effect later and see the study. So what happens in PR, that if we have, especially if we have a big team, each of us might think that somebody else from the team will probably review the code and I don't need to review it, and then the PR is waiting forever for somebody to check it. So be aware of it and give a ping to your colleagues, asking them to review the code. So, what did we cover today? We covered that the developer needs to make her PR appealing. Keep it short, keep it appealing, give context, utilize the AI for different initiatives. Do the initial review, do the code review in the PR, in a GitHub, and stuff like that. Generate the code, but remember, we are still the owners and have the responsibility. As reviewers, we need to perceive PR as a learning opportunity and a mentoring opportunity. And as a team, we need to set the rules and manage the expectation of how we conduct good code review processes and how we work good as a team together. And remember, work smart, enhance productivity, and improve the teamwork. So thank you so much for attending this talk. I hope at least you got something out of it. And if you want to connect, or if you have any question or any input, if you want to suggest your own things, your own best practices, I will be happy to hear about it. And thank you very much.